Here's a clip of MSNBC, one of their shows, trying to figure out how it could be possible that Kamala Harris could lose this election.
I want to start with you. The number of people who turned out in this election is actually overall lower than 2020 for both of the candidates. Trump is actually still tracking lower than his 2020 vote count, as is Kamala Harris. NBC had exit polls that identified what NBC has defined as, or calling, an ominous development for Democrats. I mean, we only saw just 31% of voters that identified as Democrats turning out to vote, down from 37% 4 years ago. I mean, Natasha, is it the product that's being sold that's the problem, or is it the way that it's being sold to the American people?
Could it be the fact that we absolutely stand for fucking nothing, and that we've supported genocide for a year, and that we have deported more immigrants and allowed fossil fuel fracking, and there's absolutely zero that separates the Democrats from the Republicans? Could it be that? Or is it just the message? Have we just not conveyed it correctly?
Democrats are like, look, if you're tired of our nonstop identity politics, don't worry, we got genocide.
Yeah, we'll tack that on. And so, yeah, they're shocked that fewer people could come out to vote this time around.
Problem here.
I think one of the main things that we can look to in this moment is the power of the internet and the power of media consumption and the way that it's changed. Frankly, there were a lot of messages that were directed through legacy media that sometimes didn't reach people. You know, this is a different time that we're living in. And so you have...
It's kind of coded, but what she's saying, when she says legacy media, she means New York Times, MSNBC, CNN, all these. She's basically saying the manipulation and lies and propaganda that usually do such an effective job of influencing the American public failed to get out to people well enough. Mm-hmm. Like the pro-war nonsense, the pro-genocide nonsense of the New York Times and the Washington Post, it just didn't reach enough people that it used to.
They might as well be doing this segment with each talking head literally buried inside the ground, with their heads buried inside the ground, trying to figure out, trying to recruit the nation's top political analysts to understand why a Democrat could have lost this election.
We ship a box of sand for them each to dunk their heads in as they do these reports.
They need it. It's in all their writers.
Who have maybe cut the cord. They don't open the New York Times on a Sunday, but they do get their news from a WhatsApp group chat, or they're on social media. And on the right, Republicans have intentionally and very, very carefully created disinformation campaigns, and they have filled that gap, so to speak.
Republicans have created disinformation campaigns, not at all the New York Times, that literally memos have leaked showing they can't say the word Palestine, they can't say the word genocide. They literally
has the nerve to
leaked memos
exactly
of their misinformation.
She has the nerve to disparage getting your news from WhatsApp. The Democrats have truly abandoned immigrants in this country. We now know for sure. They're coming after my parents now.
Your parents get their news from WhatsApp?
Yes, every immigrant, especially brown ones, are on WhatsApp getting all their news from there. And that's where I get most of my Biden memes, is my Republican Pakistani uncles sending me WhatsApp boomer Biden memes.
Yeah, and of course they can't possibly do any actual self-analyzation of the fact that maybe if the New York Times actually didn't literally get it wrong, like WMD in Iraq, Russiagate, literally get it wrong year after year after story after story. If they didn't do that, maybe more people would go to them for news. Could that possibly be something that happened? No, that's not the answer.
To reach people. And so often there were critiques of Democrats. There were critiques of the Biden-Harris administration that didn't have exact answers on the left, right?
And those critiques were just misinformation. There was no reality to that.
Yeah, she's dogging on publications from offering critical analysis of the Democrats.
Yeah. Well, that can't be allowed. I mean,
Paola, my friend, you and I have spent a long time leading up to this election talking about those disinformation campaigns, especially on Spanish language media platforms. You've been pounding the pavement, speaking to the Latino voters, talking to them about these issues. You've written a book about it. You've done specials about it. And now when we look at all of these returns and we're seeing the number of Latinos and Latinas that voted for Donald Trump despite his racist rhetoric, it kind of makes me want to pull my hair out a little bit here, Paula, because not only is it voting against your best self-interest here, but
best self-interest is apparently voting for the candidate that literally deported more people than Trump. Mm-hmm. That's your best self-interest for Latino and Latinas.
Yeah, and it's classic just scolding the public, right? It's classic liberal elitism, further and further disconnecting themselves from the average person.
Yeah.
Paula, explain how it is that this information was available and it could have been accessed. And yet we're sitting here having this conversation now when it's been something that we've been focusing on for a long time. I mean, I saw it happening in real time in Miami-Dade County.
I know you did. You know, I think it's hard because it is a very hard and uncomfortable truth to face what is happening. To face the reality that over 45% of Latinos voted for this person, for the person that was actively promising.
It's funny.
Their faces.
And she says it's a real uncomfortable truth to face. And you're like on the edge of your seat, like, oh my God, are they going to face the uncomfortable truth? The uncomfortable truth that fucking Harris and Biden were terrible for immigrants and did nothing for them and deported more and treat people like human garbage. Are they going to face? No, it's just the information. It's just that the information didn't get out there.
The disinformation, Lee.
Yes. Well, the disinformation, they're saying the disinformation did get out there and the information failed to get out there.
Mass deportations, actively promising to separate families and talking in such vile ways. And I think what's very important right now is not to just dismiss these gains as simply a result of economic anxiety, as simply a problem of the Democrats. I think we have to dig a little bit deeper and have those uncomfortable conversations. This goes beyond the MAGA movement and politics, in my opinion, right? This is really about Trump tapping into these very real racial and ethnic anxieties and grievances that as Latinos we carry. And through this movement, that in and of itself sort of was able to expose that we too can carry anti-immigrant sentiments and we too can carry anti-Blackness. And
now she's accusing immigrants and Latinos of being racist, which, there's racism in any group of people. But when in fact, I think the real reason is that you had an administration that did nothing for immigrants. And then you have people on TV turning around and saying, well, clearly they didn't vote for him because they're racist towards their own people. That's the real reason.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. It's so disgusting and yet uninformed at the same time and yet condescending and lecturing immigrants for not voting for the people that have treated them like garbage for 4 years.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you and I know that Trump is going to be no better for these people, but a lot of people just go, well, I know these 4 years sucked, so I'm going the other direction. That is just how a lot of Americans vote, no matter the topic.
It's just so obvious why people would not vote for the Democrats. Like, this whole charade they're doing is so pointless. Like, might as well just take a vacation, MSNBC, put on some reruns, because you're literally offering nothing right now. You know what I mean? Enjoy your lives for a little bit.
Well, and this serves the key, the key goal of actually not asking themselves the true questions of whether they're doing anything for immigrants or doing anything for poor people or doing anything for your average American at all. It's like, oh, let's have those tough questions. And here are the tough questions that are actually not the tough questions, that are actually just completely sidelining any efforts to actually analyze why this party is utterly meaningless.
I mean, all they discuss is Trump's rhetoric. Like, if that's as deep as your analysis goes, is rhetoric, then yeah, you are going to lose fucking elections.